Maggie, my first question to you as a panelist is, how have you seen the marriage issue play out in elections, specifically with the Catholic voter? And for example, I was talking about Ohio, and we had a ballot initiative there in 2004 for the marriage initiative. And what are you seeing also coming ahead down the road? We've seen recent news in Minnesota and some other places where it's bubbling back up in the States.
Thank you. We're speaking from the
right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be with so many great patriots, faithful Americans, and hopefully a few faithful Catholics. What I got from that first presentation is that Catholics are the swing vote in American elections, and it's our job to change that. Because if Catholics were voting on fundamental core moral issues with more frequency, we would see an enormous swing, or let's just say we would see continued progress in electing pro-life and pro-marriage politicians. I wanted to do three quick things, and maybe get to that last point that you asked me about last. I want to give you three great reasons why you should get involved in the marriage issue. The first is that it's incredibly important, and it's actually important to the goals of the Tea Party as well, specifically. Marriage is a fundamental human social institution. It exists in virtually every known human society. Every small jungle tribe recognized you have to bring together male and female to make and raise the next generation. And marriage as a public institution is really about trying to direct and harness romantic, emotional, erotic energies of young people into the kind of union, that won't hurt, where men and women don't hurt each other and where children don't get hurt. And when a marriage culture breaks down, as we've seen over the last 40 years, it's not only, the first victims are children who suffer and men and women who get involved in difficult situations. But I would also point out that if you want to keep government out of your bedroom, don't get a divorce or don't have children when you're not married, because that's the point at which government steps in and tells you when you can see your child, how much money you have to pay for it, what school your child can go to. Sometimes judges are getting involved in what religion the child can practice, even though they ought, but it's all as a result of the breakdown of the natural family. And enormous taxpayer costs are generated as well, hundreds of billions of dollars every year, as government steps in and tries to help these children with real social needs, but which the government can't provide nearly as well as families. I got involved. I spent 20 years in the problem of family fragmentation and fatherlessness, and I got involved in the same-sex marriage debate because I understand that the foundational ideas of a major social institution really matter. And the heart of the gay marriage idea is this: there's no difference between same-sex and opposite-sex couples. If you see a difference, there's something wrong with you. You're like a bigot who is opposed to interracial marriage. And when the government gets that idea and embeds it in the law, it's going to have consequences. It's going to have consequences for marriage as a public idea. The idea that children need a mother and father will be treated in public institutions and in the public square as discredited, hateful bigotry. We're already seeing a very vigorous attempt to try to make that come true, which the American people are resisting. It will change what schools teach about marriage and family life. And there may be things in the schools happening that you don't like right now. But if gay marriage is the law of the land, and we're getting a lot of reports from this behind the scenes, your children will be taught with your tax dollars, and your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, that gay marriage is a great civil rights triumph, and people who don't see same-sex unions as marriages are at best backwards and irrational and probably hatefully motivated. And the other great consequence, the second great reason, so marriage itself really matters, and gay marriage changes the foundation of the idea of marriage in a way that disconnects it from its great public mission. People get married for all kinds of reasons. The question is, why do we create a public institution called marriage and get the government involved? And the answer has always been historically because we understand that regulating procreation, bringing mothers and fathers together for children, really matters, and it affects not only that individual family, it affects the whole society and the common good. The second great reason to get involved in the marriage debate is that the future of the relationship between the Judeo-Christian tradition and the American government and society is at stake. I don't know what could be a bigger idea at stake. But so when you redefine marriage, you also redefine the relationship between Genesis and the American tradition, right? Such that people who believe we are born male and female and that men and women are called to come together in love to make and raise their children together, that children need mothers and fathers, this set of ideas now is enough to get you sidelined in the public square. And in many cases, the power of the government is already being used to marginalize and stigmatize people who disagree with the foundational ideas of same-sex marriage. So we are seeing Christian adoption agencies forced to close. This is not about whether gay people are free to adopt. They are in every state in the Union. But it's about whether you can have a Catholic adoption agency that doesn't do gay adoptions, and gay people go to the ones that do, and Catholic charities can continue to help poor orphan children find good homes. This was a modus vivendi that is breaking down because in the interest of stigmatizing what they believe is discrimination, we are now seeing couples going to these agencies in states that have civil union and marriage laws and then filing discrimination complaints. Licensing is another big avenue. Can you be a marriage counselor, a physician, a psychiatrist, a lawyer, a teacher, a social worker, if you don't see same-sex unions as marriages after gay marriage, after the government adopts the gay marriage idea? Well, the answer is probably not at least if you let anyone know about what you believe, right? And we see, again, we're seeing instances of this breaking out. We're seeing graduate students kicked out of marriage counseling programs because they do not want to personally counsel gay couples on how to keep their relationships together. They are willing to politely refer them to someone else, but that is not good enough, you see, because that's discrimination against same-sex couples, and it's the government's job, in the liberal mind view, to stamp out discrimination. Another way of wrapping up the whole set of concerns, this fundamental revaluation and change in the relationship between America and the Christian tradition, is to say that equality in our system of government is the state religion, right? And it trumps religious liberty. That's a well-established principle in American law, whether we like it or not. So you can say you believe in marriage equality, but what you cannot say, therefore, is that this is not going to affect anyone else. It's just going to be about what that nice couple down the street does. Because what the government defines as equality and necessary for anti-discrimination, the government has a lot of power to marginalize and repress and stigmatize those who hold beliefs that the government views as fundamentally anti-equality. But let me offer the third reason briefly about, and this goes to the question of how we're seeing the vote play out, of why you should get involved in the marriage issue, because it's really fun to win, okay? It's especially fun to win if all of the pundits and all of the mainstream media are constantly telling you that it's impossible to win, and then you just go out there and you do it. Like one of my favorite political consultants says, it's not a done deal. If it were a done deal, it would be done already, right? And this is what we found. We are always told, it's just this spring, okay? So the history of the National Organization for Marriage, it's a really improbable organization. I was a writer. I'm a kind of low-rent egghead. I went to Robbie George, who's like an A-plus egghead, the Princeton natural law philosopher professor, and I said, Robbie, we have to start an activist organization because nobody else is going to do it that focuses on this as a single issue, and the fight is going to move into these blue states. And there's only one team on the ground. That team's going to win eventually. That's it. That's for sure. And he said yes, and then God gave us Brian Brown, the president of the National Organization for Marriage, who's an amazing leader and organization builder. And, we started out, we got Prop 8 on the ballot. They told us it couldn't be done. And then we did it. And they told us that if we did this, we would lose because the culture had shifted. By the way, those are the people who agreed with me, who were telling me that, right? But we went and tried it, and we found that that wasn't true. And then they told us they were certainly going to win in Maine, because Maine's a blue state, and They had learned the lessons of California. And instead, we woke, everyone but me was shocked. I got all these reporters calling me, were you surprised? And I was like, no, I'm not really surprised, frankly, because we've never actually lost. Knock on wood. But everyone else is very surprised. And then in 2010, we helped flip the legislatures in Minnesota and New Hampshire, and obviously it was a very good year for Republicans. And in New Hampshire, and the result of that is that this spring, Minnesota has just passed a marriage amendment, and it will go to the people of Minnesota to decide the future of marriage, not activist courts, in 2012. And we also were told that they were going to pass gay marriage bills in Rhode Island and Maryland, two of the bluest states in the nation, which almost no effect of the Republican wave in these states. They're so democratic, and they're also very Catholic. And again, we found that simply wasn't true. In Maryland, it was extraordinary because they pushed it barely through the Senate, and then it was supposed to pass the House in a breeze. Instead, as a result of the immense pressure from their constituents, a number of sense of how much they must have been hearing from their people. And so what we know is that although, first of all, we know that any negative message about marriage will get widely relayed, and even our people won't hear the good news unless we tell them. But secondly, we do see some changes in the national polling numbers, but we're not seeing it reflected on the ground. And I think what's actually happening is that people are becoming afraid to admit they think marriage means one man and one woman. And that's to a stranger on the phone. But in the privacy of the polling booth, we're still finding that the number of people who believe this is an important issue and will stand up and vote for it is much larger on our side. So this is an issue which wins over and over again. You have to have faith in it. And I want to just say that what NOM has done, of course, we work with many people, Family Research Council, the local state family policy councils, but particularly the Catholic bishops have been amazing leaders on this issue. They've taken the media hits for it, and their people, the faithful Catholics in the pews, do listen. Not all of them, but we are seeing that the church-going Sunday Catholics are holding on this issue, and I think that's a direct response to the messages they're getting from the bishops.
Thank you, Maggie.